Montana is a place that I grew up in Colorado in the Rockies. I was born in Kansas. Spent a lot of my time growing up either visiting the family farm in Kansas or traipsing around the Rockies with my brother. And as I was looking at a place to start a family and raise a family, I was looking for a place that had a lot of the elements that meant so much to me growing up. And Montana is a place that I had always admired from afar. And my wife, Bex, and I were looking at relocating and starting a family, and a position opened at the University of Montana for her, and she took the job, and I started looking around for work and landed a job in conservation. It's been wonderful.
Tell me about the nonprofit that you've been working with for quite some time.
Yeah, so when I first arrived in Montana, I was working at the Bitterroot Land Trust in Ravalli County. Worked there with a group of farmers and ranchers called the Ravalli County Right to Farm and Ranch Board. Really tried to help them realize their vision for creating an open space bond program in Ravalli County that would protect working farms and ranches there. We were successful in 2006. Not very long after that, a position opened in Missoula with my wife at the University of Montana and us living in Missoula. I had a hard time commuting to Hamilton every day, and so I took a job at the Five Valleys Land Trust, working for them for the last 10 years. And a lot of the same work, less focus on the sort of passing an open space bond and setting a program up, and more on implementation. How do we work with farmers and ranchers and conservation-minded folks to either protect family farms and ranches or create access to public recreation opportunities?
Well,
so we either acquire land that gives people an opportunity to access the river, or we work on conservation easements with willing landowners.
Sure. So how does that translate into a run for Congress? What was the tipping point that said it's time for me to run?
That's a great question. So, for me, it's been about living in one of Missoula's one of the sort of urban centers of Montana and doing most of my work in rural communities, just really seeing how much rural and urban communities have in common and how much people share their values, and feeling like our politics today don't really reflect how much shared value we have. And I think I saw an opportunity to try to use my experience pulling people together to solve problems and try to take what I think is the best of Montana and see if we can take it to Washington, D.C.
Now, I know that chances are you will probably be running against Greg Gianforte, and it was shall we say, a bumpy ride for Mr. Gianforte to get into office. Once the campaign begins, and say you're lucky enough to win the primary, how would you go about running against someone that, first of all, has a great deal of money, and unfortunately, maybe not so much notoriety that has been sought after, but is certainly there? Is that something that you would focus on, or are you simply going to focus on the issues?
I'm going to focus on Montanans, and I think what Montanans appreciate is somebody who works really hard and looks them in the eye. So I'm going to try to spend time getting across the state, talking to people face-to-face, getting to know the communities and giving them a chance to get to know me, and hopefully building enough trust that they believe I'm somebody who can represent them and who will respect their views and who will take their issues into consideration as I go to D.C. and try to do the best job I can on behalf of all Montanans.
Let me ask you this, Grant. Let's say that you are the nominee from the Democratic Party, and you are running against Mr. Gianforte. What would you say would be the thing that separates you from Mr. Gianforte as far as policies go?
As far as policies go, I think I'm a regular guy. I come from a pretty modest background, and I think I understand what it takes to sort of get by every day and just want a better life for your family every day. And I think that I'm going to bring forward policies that focus on how do people have access to better jobs that they already have and improve their lives day by day, and not get caught up in sort of hyper-partisan rhetoric at a national level. I think I connect well with regular Montanans and regular folks. I'm not going to be a self-funded candidate, so I can't isolate myself from the people of Montana. I need to be right there with them and make sure that if I'm doing good work for them, they believe in me, and I'll bring policies that take care of the people of Montana.
The one thing that I did notice during especially during the national campaigns, congressional and, of course, senatorial campaigns, is that once the national committees get involved, the National Democratic Committee or the National Republican Committee, it doesn't matter, they have a tendency to want to handle the candidates. In other words, here's what we want you to say, here's where we want you to go, that sort of thing. Is that something that you would welcome or something you would resist?
Well, I think it's safe to say that's something I would resist. I think, from day one, I am going to treat campaigning like it is already my job to represent the people of Montana. So I'm going to listen to what they're about. I'm going to find out what they're looking for from a congressman, and I'm going to stay focused on the things that I hear from the people I talk to in Montana.
All right. As you go forth and campaign, have you had a chance to meet the other candidates on the Democratic ticket?
I have, yep.
And what is, are you getting along, or obviously you're going to have to run against them first?
I've been a competitive athlete all my life, and I think that one of the values I bring from that is that you can be fierce in competition and still be respectful to human beings outside of that. So that's the spirit I'm going to take forward in my campaign mode. I'm going to work as hard as I can. I'm going to be working to win this campaign and this election, but I'm not going to stop treating people with respect across the board.